A very good morning to you. The final stretch of Business AM. I'm joined by Dawn McKenna, who's the Managing Director at Story Moja, to discuss the status of publishing in Kenya. Actually, what book are you currently reading? Send us your feedback at Metropole TV KE, at Ndirokanga, hashtag Business AM. McKenna, thank you for making time. What book are you reading? Let me start by asking you the question I've asked the audience. What book are you currently reading?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm reading The Bluest Eye
Uh-huh.
by Toni Morrison, which I've read over and over. And I love her to bits.
Okay,
Yes.
you've not asked me, but I'll still tell you.
Yes.
I've finished my book. Actually, I was reading The Hairdressers of Harare.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the book I've just finished reading. Interesting book.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see that in the continent, literature is really growing.
Yes.
And even in the East African region,
Yes.
and even in the country, we have a reading culture where from high school, primary you read storybooks, high school you have set books. So let's start. What's the reading culture like in the country?
The reading culture in Kenya is ailing. I think you've just described it very well. We start off by being introduced to books
Yes.
in the classroom, probably by a teacher holding a cane. Remember that English is a foreign language to a lot of us.
Yes.
So that's not our first language. And that becomes very interesting as you go along because, of course, different challenges. When you go into the schools, the storybooks are not particularly in the school. So you will come across a few textbooks. And that's your interaction with this foreign language. When you go to most homes in Kenya, you will not find a home library. So then that presents another challenge. But then this is supposed to be this is your language of instruction. This is the language that determines how far you go as an individual. So definitely these are all challenges that then contribute to this reading culture. A lot of young people, when they finish class 8 or do their exams, KCP or KCSE, we say we have cleared, school cleared. And cleared means that we've put the books down, literally.
Yes.
And we've stopped reading. So we are a country where we read for exams, we read to pass exams. That is, and we hardly read as a lifestyle. We haven't quite embraced it.
Yeah.
Are different stakeholders making a very deliberate effort to turn that around? Yes. We have a Story Moja, and we continue to work with a lot of like-minded organizations to make sure that that happens. But it's then baby steps, one step at a time, but then quite a bit to be done. Yes.
So when you're talking about the baby steps, what exactly are you kind of doing to redefine the reading culture in the country?
Okay, Story Moja, we have been at it very consistent with our agenda the last 11 years. Our agenda is simple, to get a book in every hand. And now we keep saying to get a book in every mind, because then we've gone digital. It's been an uphill task, preaching a gospel that is not very popular, that people don't find very exciting over the years. Our work is modeled around 3 things. This acronym we call CIA. One is content. We develop high quality content, African, authentic African content. Our stories are designed to teach, to educate, to empower, to stimulate thinking. We believe very strongly that Africans should tell their own story, that Africans must educate Africans. In addition to the stories that we develop right from children, we say 0 to 18 years, that's our focus group. We've been very intentional about designing content for that specific age group. Most of our content is for children below 10, because we feel very strongly that if you're able to influence those ones, then we can really talk about a generation of lifelong readers. We also publish for curriculum. Our book is the set book, one of the current set books, from 4 set books. We have our books being used as for the competency-based curriculum, grade 1 to 4. We have published career books, first in market product, where we feel very strongly that, you remember how lost most of us were when you had to select your subjects in Form 2. And a lot of these decisions were just made based on your peers or the teacher you liked or didn't like. And that's not an informed way of choosing subjects. So we have then gone out to develop career content. We have published children. Our youngest author was published when he was 11.
Yes.
So very exciting for that. The I, and after the C, is interest. And we are very deliberate about stimulating interest in reading. We run the biggest East African literary festival. Story Moja Festival started 10 years ago as a very small literary gathering, and now it's home to more than 6,000 Kenyans, especially children, who need to be exposed to this space where we celebrate literature, we celebrate writers, we celebrate our African Kenyan and the Kenyan narrative, because it's really important that we pen that. The A is access to books.
Yes.
And when we talk about getting a book in every hand, we truly mean it. We have gone out of our way to get books into the hands of children, especially the disadvantaged children out there who don't have books.
Sorry.
We have started, sorry,
Excuse me.
we have started libraries, 191 libraries across 15 counties, in partnership with county governments, with Kenyans of Goodwill, different organizations, corporate organizations. We have continued to call out, because more than 20,000 public primary schools in Kenya don't have a library, and that is a crisis.
Yeah.
Yes.
And speaking of schools with no libraries, we need to get books out there, and you're speaking about publishing. How does publishing look in the country? Because when we publish is when we can be able to get enough content out there for the kids.
Publishing is challenging, to be honest. Getting content, publishable content, is not easy, unfortunately. And what we are doing, we are intentionally growing authors, intentionally growing. I've just mentioned that we've published children.
Yes. And
we continue to run workshops and be very deliberate about the programs. Our quest to publish children is something that we are committed to. We run authors, so where we commission writers to then write for different areas that we need to. You have talked about what are we doing. We've gone out of the Kenyan borders, out there to look for opportunities to co-publish. And we co-published our live series through the same arrangement, where we went out and partnered with a credible South African publisher to get content to address some of the gaps that exist. Are we doing enough?
Yes.
Not yet. I think, if that's what you're asking.
What more can we do?
What more can we do? I think it is a concerted effort that we can make to be able to provide opportunities to grow writers, opportunities, and make it favorable for writers to exist, for writing to be a career. We need to make it favorable for young people to be able to look at writing as an opportunity, as a business, opportunity for them, so that then we can be able to really develop content. I think in platforms like the Story Moja Festival, which is an international platform that is able to get our local writers interacting and sharing a platform and networking with international writers, I think that's also a great opportunity. But I think intentionally we need to go out and really pen our story.
Okay.
Yes.
And speaking of just growing our local market and nurturing our writers, if you look at West Africa, we can name names: Buchi Mechete, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Chinelo Parente. The list is endless. Chimeka Garrix. You go to the south, they also have very formidable writers and very interesting books that have come from there. But if you look at the East African region, we have one or two very prominent figures, but that generational transition, because if you look at Wole Soyinka and Buchi Mecheta, they are like the older writers, and then you have the new writers that are coming in, and you can see that a baton is being passed even in the south. What are we doing to ensure that transition in the east, and also catching up with our brothers, because the literature has gone worldwide? Everybody knows about what's the name of this big character from Chinua Achebe's book? I've just forgotten the name, but Okonkwo. Yes, everybody worldwide knows Okonkwo. But what are we doing to ensure that we catch up with our big brothers?
Wow, yes. I know, I mean, the challenge is out there. But to be honest, the Kenyan writing scene is also growing. I choose to celebrate. And I think most of the time we forget to celebrate our own heroes. So we've got young writers who've got a lot of potential. We have Wanja Njama, who's young, 19, I think now about 19. We have published her work. and I reimagined tales. Excellent writer with lots of potential. We have Edna Geshovi, very young writers. Our youngest, Joseph Bokea. We have seen what this banker turned writer, Kinyanjui Kombani.
Okay.
You've seen what he's doing out there. And I think there are lots of those. Billy Kahora, celebrated
So how
writer.
do we ensure that this good literature
Yes.
is celebrated back at home, consumed, so that we can propel them to the continental and global stage?
Excellent. That's why you're here. And I think the media has got a big part to play. While we continue as Story Moja and other like-minded organizations, Kwani and many others who have been very deliberate in creating a platform to be able to showcase and celebrate these readers, we then need another voice. We need people to partner, to lend us their voice, to lend us their networks, so that we can be able to amplify and celebrate. And of course, the biggest thing is to reach out to Kenyans out there to say, even as these people write, we need to celebrate them by consuming the content that they produce.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, we live in a digital era.
Yes.
Digitization. I cannot honestly remember the last time I bought a physical copy of a book. You go to Amazon, you buy a soft copy, or Kindle. So many apps that you can get your soft copy books from. How are we in the Kenyan scene ensuring that we are not disrupted by the digital force that is coming over, and we can reinvent ourselves to be able to use technology to our benefits?
Technology is here with us, and I think as publishing, as a publishing company, we have responded to this development. As you've said, rightly said, many of us are now reading on digital platforms because it's convenient. I mean, and it's cheap. It's cheaper.
Yes,
it's cheaper. It is cheaper because, you know, I mean, you're a country which has not zero rated. I mean, books, VAT on books, on printed books. So it's definitely cheaper. It's more convenient, and we have responded. Most of our books are available on digital platforms. They're available on Amazon. We have opened up the market to the globe, which then is also a good thing for the writers, because then it opens up your market, and the returns then sort of start making sense. How are we responding, I think, is what you're asking. Publishing is a very capital intensive industry, very capital intensive, where you've got to put in a lot of money upfront and hope to reap. So we have then heavily invested in digital, including studios where we are converting our books right now into audio, into animation. So that's an exciting space that we've got to respond to. So as responsive publishers, we continue to do that. But then again, it's what you've said. Considering the reading culture in Kenya is not as vibrant, then that slows down. But as we are going, there's quite, I mean, you've seen the uptick on digital, even among Kenyans. So that there's quite there's some promise. There's some promise.
Now, I want us to talk about some of the content that you've created.
Yes.
And previously, one of your published books called Blood Ties met headlines, and it wasn't received very well on social media, and Muthoni Garland came out and took full responsibility. And let's just go through a little bit through the press conference, and it says, it was published under the publisher's life series titles, whose objective is to enlighten teenagers on how to deal with sexual matters, sexual violence, gambling, drug abuse, early teenage pregnancies, among other challenges faced today in the country. Let's just go through over what caused controversy behind this book, because some of the issues that the press release says the book is handling are very timely issues that we face.
Yes. So Blood Ties is one of our books under the Life series, which I mentioned that we have co-published with a South African publisher.
Yes.
And we particularly selected this series because we felt that it speaks right into the issues, into the situation of the young person today. This book, the whole series has been received very well in South Africa. And once we brought it here, we adopted it to the Kenyan market. So this is a series that has about 26 books in both English and Swahili. And this is just one book. Blood Ties is one title in that series. Some of the books in that series are actually approved by KICD. And this particular book has not been submitted to Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development because it was developed as a general reader.
Okay.
Just like any other book that you will walk in and get into a supermarket, into a bookshop, it was designed as a general reader. So not as compulsory text and not as a textbook for use in schools. Having said that, you have rightly said that it highlights issues that are with us every single day. And we see the struggle that the teenagers and the young people go through every day. So the controversial bit about this book is that it had one profane word, which is under the list of profane words, that was used 3 times on one paragraph, on one page, describing a rape scene. You and I know how difficult that situation, how messy it is. And the people who have experienced it say that that's not even the word, that's a tame word. That's not even the word that's used in that real situation. The idea, the creative judgment that we applied while leaving that word there was to make the scene as realistic as possible and to really make it relatable. Unfortunately, then we've had the public outcry. And as we said, we will ensure that no profane word finds itself in our books going forward. And while we will continue to apply creative judgment, we will do that with while exercising extreme caution and sensitivity.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we are almost running out of time. Very briefly, if someone wants to publish, what are you always looking for in authors and in writers for you to publish their work?
Interesting. We look at different things at different times. So we are a very responsive publisher, and we publish to address a specific need. So very intentional. And as I've said, publishing is very capital intensive. So while you might want to publish everything across the board, sometimes it's difficult. So you will find that we are very intentional, as I've said, to publish for children between 0 and 18, below 18. And in particular, we are trying to fill a gap for the teenagers between 13 and 18 currently. So we have different ways in on how we approach publishing. One, we get unsolicited manuscripts, where everyone, including yourself, who is a prolific reader, I would then encourage you to write. You submit your manuscript to us. And what are we going to be looking for? We're going to be looking for authenticity. We're going to be looking for the story. So what's the storyline? What exactly, we're going to be checking whether it is your original work. So that's really important. And you're going to be looking at themes and other things, because I also mentioned that much as we're publishing stories, they've got to teach, they've got to have a couple of things that we look at. The other thing that we do, we have commissioned writing, where we go out and invite people to come and write on very specific things, maybe PCIs, pertinent contemporary issues, and we list them down. And then if you feel that you have any content that you can share on that front, then you can come and do that. The other way is then co-publishing, where we already go and find books that have been published elsewhere, and then we buy the rights and adapt them and distribute them for this market. Those are the 3 options, and that's how it works.
Finally, in 30 seconds, your parting shot, particularly to that person who is interested in literature and would, moving forward, like to consume more of Kenyan content. Camera 2.
Mine is just to encourage you. I think
Camera 3, actually. Go ahead.
Mine is just to encourage you to consume the literature that's out there. We believe very strongly that a reading nation is a thinking nation. And in particular, parents out there, it is important for you to encourage your children to read. Children are at home now for 8 weeks, and you need to keep them busy, because a child who reads is an adult who thinks. Let us continue celebrating our literature, our African literature, our Kenyan literature. Let us celebrate the Kenyan heroes who have stopped to pen down our Kenyan story and our African story over the years. And it is important for us to think about who is carrying on this story as we go forward. I celebrate the writers who have been there, those who've gone before us, those who have boldly set the stage for us. And as the young writers now take on, it is important for us to continue celebrating them and cheering them on.
Thank you very much, McKenna, for making time.
Thank you very much.
We were having a very interesting conversation on the state of publishing and the reading culture in the country. But before I just finish, let's go through some of these things. Nini Simone once said, it's the job of art to reflect the times upon which we live in. If you look at Nigeria, Chinelo Okparanta wrote a very interesting book called Under the Idolatry that addresses issue of gender orientation. Higher. Let's move on to South Africa, where Tendai Huchu wrote a book in Zimbabwe called The Hairdressers of Harare, which equally addresses gender biases and stereotypes that we place in this society, and also goes to address issues of reproductive and sexual health. Chimeka Garrix in Nigeria wrote a book called Tomorrow Died Yesterday to address the injustices that are happening in the Niger Belt region in terms of oil and oil extraction in that region. Artists and writers are the people that are using their form of art and writing to amplify the issues and the injustices that are going on in this society. And in Kenya, as Muthoni Gallan rightly put it in their press release, issues of teen pregnancies, sexual abuse are here and they're happening. And it is the job of our writers, our artists, and with the media to amplify these injustices and give them a voice so that they can be addressed. And if we have a problem with that, then we have a really long way to go in order to achieve social justice in the country. My name is Ndero Ganga. Have yourself a good morning.